Good evening and thank you for joining us. A small plane has crashed on the runway at the Thunder Bay Airport. The failed landing caused heavy damage to the aircraft, but fortunately no one was hurt. The three people on board this Beechcraft 300 turboprop plane all walked away without injury from the crash that happened over the noon hour today. The plane sustained damage to both wings and the tail and was also leaking fuel just off the runway. City fire crews helped airport staff mitigate the spill. Airport officials weren't able to comment today, but a local business owner who witnessed the crash told us the plane didn't sound right coming into land. He says it then bounced off the runway and did a full 180 before crashing into a snowbank near the airport fences. A media release from the airport says the scene is being held for investigation. Some flights on that runway may be affected, so passengers are asked to check their flight status. Thunder Bay Police have now confirmed the identity of the victim of the city's most recent homicide. 37-year-old Antoine Bouchard was found dead at Bethune Street home last Wednesday. And as Corey Nordstrom tells us, police are also now investigating a shooting on the same street last night.
37-year-old Antoine Bouchard has been identified as the victim in last Wednesday's murder on Bethune Street. Detective Inspector John Fennell confirms there appear to be drug overtones in this investigation, but he couldn't say if investigators had any suspects yet or if the use of any weapons could be confirmed.
There has been a postmortem conducted in Toronto. We do have the results of that autopsy so far, so our investigators are following up with the evidence that was gained through the pathology office. So that investigation still continues.
Less than a week after the initial sudden death on Bethune Street, more violence just a block away. I'm standing in front of a building that now has 9 bullet holes in it after a late-night shooting on Sunday.
We can't draw a correlation that one is related to the other. If the investigation reveals that, obviously the detectives will be able to link the two at that time. Right now, they're treated as separate incidents being looked at by 2 different investigative teams.
Fortunately, no one was injured in the shooting. Residents in the area say they witnessed a black car fleeing the scene immediately following the gunshots. Fennell warns that these incidents could rise due to police's activity on the local drug trade.
We've been doing a project in regards to drug houses throughout the city. We have been learning on the street level that has put an impact on them and it's causing a bit of competition. Unfortunately, as the competition starts to increase, these type of incidents could also increase.
Anyone with information on either last week's murder or Sunday night's shooting is being urged to call police or Crime Stoppers with tips. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
A pair of incidents over the weekend have led to charges against 5 people, including 3 Toronto teenagers. First, 2 male teens aged 16 and 18 were arrested for drug trafficking on Saturday morning in the North Core. Both fled from police. The first was taken into custody after a brief struggle. The second was initially stopped by a passerby before the accused informed that person that he had a gun. The teen again fled, dropping the handgun, but was arrested a short time later. The 2 face several offenses, including trafficking, cocaine, and fentanyl, as well as firearms charges. Then on Saturday afternoon, police were made aware of a home takeover on North Syndicate Avenue. A 15-year-old female from Toronto and 2 local adults were arrested. They're all charged with being unlawfully in the home, forcible confinement, and uttering threats. Well, it's good news for hundreds of Thunder Bay business owners. The province eased several COVID-19 restrictions today. Restaurants, gyms, and city recreational facilities are now able to welcome people inside for the first time in nearly a month. The changes also affect the Silver City Movie Theatre and Intercity Shopping Centre. Vasilios Bellows reports.
The easing of protocols means shoppers at Inner City no longer have to be screened by security at the entranceways. Instead, it is being hoped individuals monitor their own symptoms, and if they're not feeling well, they stay home. William Twance is a local shopper who feels comfortable with the loosening of restrictions, but does understand some issues could arise.
With the apprehension of people not being vaccinated and not being overly enthused to wear masks, I feel like it might cause some problems, especially with restaurant owners and other businesses that do rely on having that extra layer of security.
Along with not having to be screened at the doors, shoppers are now able to sit down in the food court to enjoy a meal or coffee between stops. There are still capacity limits in place, with many tables blocked off to allow for easier distancing. Rachel Scavarelli works at a retail store at Inner City, and she believes opening up the seating at the food court will benefit all the businesses inside.
Definitely helps a lot. It gets more traffic in the mall, which really helps all these shops get their, shopping needs done and whatnot. So yeah, it's super nice, especially people going out to the mall, shopping. You're going to want to get a coffee or a snack and sit down and, enjoy your experience at the mall.
Along with loosened restrictions at the mall, movie lovers will once again be able to catch the latest show at Silver City. The province is also allowing the sale of drinks and snacks, which had been banned in theaters since December 19th. General Manager Patricia Kutok says people are just as excited being able to pick up that bag of popcorn before heading into the theater as they are for the movie itself.
There's nothing like coming to the movies and getting a large popcorn. It was disappointing to guests in the beginning, but now we worked through it, and we're really excited that we can now serve our guests and really give them that escape with the popcorn too.
The movie experience feels closer to normal than it has for some time. If all goes as planned, the next phase of reopening happens February 21st, where capacity restrictions will be scrapped wherever proof of vaccination is required. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
That sigh of relief not coming just from local business owners, but from those across the province. But was this the last lockdown in Ontario? That's still an open question, but more and more people are now calling for the restrictions to be lifted for good. Colin DeMello has more.
With businesses once again beginning to reopen, could this mark the last time Ontario goes through the cycle of closures? Even among those in healthcare, that is the hope.
I think we have to start thinking about forward strategies. Does that mean that everyone's going to take off their mask and crowd indoors, in the next few months? No, but, a gradual reopening, being humble, but still allowing businesses to operate, I think it's the way forward.
While the Chief Medical Officer of Health says the province needs to learn to live with COVID-19, the decisions on what happens next is ultimately a political one. Today, Premier Doug Ford released a brief statement saying the reopening is the first step in returning to normal and putting the pandemic behind us. At Queen's Park, where the government has consistently faced political pressure to act, even opponents are acknowledging Ontarians are weary.
People are experiencing lockdown fatigue. The frustration is real, and so you can't hide from that or pretend that it doesn't exist.
But the parties differ in the ways to deal with it. The government's critics say the premier needs to be proactive by expanding PCR testing, providing frontline workers with N95 masks, and strengthening vaccine mandates.
I think the vaccine certificate needs to be strengthened and needs to be more reflective of where we find ourselves right now. And to me, that means adding the booster or third shot requirement to the vaccine certificate.
At the same time, some parties argue the government needs to be upfront on when the rest of the public health measures can be dismantled.
The premier needs to come out with, here is what public health experts are saying is, the quote goal we need to be at when we can lift vaccine mandates. And I think it should be based on achieving that goal rather than an arbitrary date.
It seems even the political conversations are changing, encouraging signs for those who want the pandemic fog to lift. Colin DeMello, CTV News.
The easing of those restrictions comes as COVID-19 numbers at the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Centre remain stubbornly high. The latest report from the regional hospital indicates that there are 45 COVID patients being treated at the facility. This after reaching a high of 51 over the weekend. 8 of those patients are in the ICU. Hospital occupancy has fallen to 97%. The occupancy rate in intensive care is down as well, at nearly 82%. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 172 new infections over the weekend. There are now 310 active cases, down from 341 on Friday. Last week, 20.6% of tests conducted across the district came back positive. There are 259 active cases in the Northwestern Health Unit. 22.4% of tests there over the last 7 days were positive. There are still 3 people in hospitals situated within the NWHU's catchment area with no COVID patients in intensive care. Meanwhile, one outbreak at the Thunder Bay Correctional Center has ended, but another has just begun at the facility. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit has declared the outbreak on the male side of the facility over, but there's now an outbreak on the female side. Few details are being released regarding a workplace fatality associated with the Watay Power Line project. A worker was found dead last Wednesday at a remote work site almost 400 kilometers north of Pickle Lake near Muskrat Dam First Nation. The Ministry of Labour says the worker was employed by Vallard Construction along with a secondary employer, K&L Contracting. A ministry inspector attended the scene with the OPP on Friday, and 6 work orders were issued to Vallard the next day. The investigation continues. Watay officials have expressed condolences to the family. The Special Investigations Unit has cleared 2 officers from the Dryden Police Service following its probe into an incident on September 30th in which 33 shots were fired by the officers at a suspect ramming them with his vehicle. The officers were responding to an assault at the Thunder Lake residence. When they exited their cruiser, the suspect jumped into a parked pickup truck and drove directly into their vehicle, causing it to strike one of the officers. They sought cover in nearby trees and fired their guns at the truck as the driver attempted another run at them before getting wedged in the trees. The driver then got out and was handcuffed, but not before threatening to kill the officers. The suspect was taken to hospital with fractured ribs but no gunshot wounds, while one officer was treated for ankle injuries. The driver, 40-year-old Jack Kelly, was later charged with attempted murder and other offenses. The SIU concluded both officers were justified in discharging their firearms to protect themselves, and no charges will be laid. As concern continues to grow over a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine, a former Thunder Bay resident who is currently working in Kiev says the situation may seem calm now, but he feels it's on the verge of escalating quickly. Stephen Orleski has been living with his family in Ukraine since September, working in development finance. The situation at the Russia-Ukraine border has continued to digress in recent months and has now reached a tipping point. The Kremlin says there's little room for optimism when it comes to resolving the standoff at the border diplomatically, and several countries have begun evacuating their embassies. Orleski has made arrangements to fly with his family to Germany next week until the situation settles down, and says their return to Ukraine is uncertain.
We booked our tickets and we're just wondering, what do we do with our apartment and our dog? Should we book a ticket for our dog as well so he can come with us, or do we leave him behind with friends, thinking that we'll be coming back? I'd like to come back to finish the work here, but it remains to be seen.
Orleski thinks the start of the Winter Olympics in Beijing this Friday could temporarily push back an impending invasion, believing that Russian President Vladimir Putin won't want to draw focus away from China's opening ceremony. Well, to happier local news now, the first of many Winter Fun Days was held at Prince Arthur's Landing yesterday. The city's hosting the free events every Sunday this winter, and the first saw families make arts and crafts out of ice and snow. Mitchell Ringos was there.
The first Winter Fun Day had 3 activities for families to try out for fun, from building their own custom snow globe to take home, making papier-mâché snowflakes, and building their own mini snow figurines that they could personalize with colored spray they made themselves. The event ran from 2 in the afternoon to 4 p.m. and saw dozens of locals head down to Prince Arthur's Landing for some winter fun. Co-executive director for the Community Arts and Heritage Education Project, Alexis Shermack, spoke about why these fun days are so important for the community.
It's really great because Thunder Bay is so cold in the winter, and sometimes I think we feel like there's not a lot to do outside. Offering people a way to get outside and a way to enjoy the spaces in Thunder Bay is so valuable to all the citizens, all the community, and being able to be back together as a community is really important right now as well.
And with families having a blast, especially the kids, we asked locals down on the waterfront how they were enjoying the winter activities for the first of many Winter Fun Days.
It's good to have this kind of event because we can play outside and also be in touch with other people.
I'm really enjoying it.
What about you?
enjoying it too.
It was fun. I like the dinosaur.
Shermack was grateful for the nice weather as it let locals have fun in the snow without getting too cold. And with 7 more winter fun days to take place this winter, with a huge variety of activities like ice fishing, skating, dog sledding, and more, Shermack says the fun has just begun.
You know, you never know with an event like this, especially sort of with the climate nowadays, right? You aren't sure if people are going to stay home or not, but I kind of suspected that we would have a nice turnout because of the beautiful day that we've got today. So I really am hopeful that the coming weekends are just the same so that, you know, the turnout is just as good for the other events.
And Winter Fun Days will continue every Sunday until March 20th, with the next activity making the mini snow people down at the Northwood Playfield on February 6th. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
I don't think Mitchell's mastered that toy yet. Well, Thunder Bay's newest fast food restaurant drew hordes of people to the Thunder Center for its opening this morning. The drive-through line to get a taste of some Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen and its famous chicken outstretched the lot on Isabel Street. Franchisee Jonathan Enright says some customers waited more than an hour for the doors to open for their 11 o'clock launch. Enright owns multiple Popeyes restaurants in Manitoba and saw Thunder Bay as an ideal location because of its size and the regular traffic at the Thunder Center. The opening day was made even busier as it coincided with the return of indoor dining.
You know, obviously we were watching the restrictions very, very carefully. We were hoping to open today regardless. It's a bonus that we're able to welcome guests into the restaurant to dine in at 50%. But you know, it's a challenging time to be in the restaurant space, never mind to open a restaurant, but we're very fortunate that we're able to do so today.
Popeyes has hired 65 people to staff the new restaurant, excuse me. And Fiona, not a bad day out there for those waiting outside. If winter was like this all the time, I wouldn't dislike